Now watch this drive.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to NPA, that is no party affiliation, for those of you who struggle with acronyms. You know how we do here: what's real, what's false, and everything in between. You're going to get perspectives, everything from liberal eat babies Hollywood all the way through the CIA and into Army Special Operations with the Green Berets and an Air Force cop. But today, all we have is former CIA asset and Hollywood insider Tom Cunningham and myself. Obviously, Chris, guys, I was a former Green Beret and Intel analyst, and we are going to hold the fort down here while the others got stuck at work. But that's all right, because we always have fun. Mr. Tom, how are you today? What's going on?
I'm doing well, Chris. How you been?
I am. I don't know if you can tell, I got a little bit of sun this weekend. Brandon and I got invited down to the Texas Motor Speedway for the Worth 400. And have you ever taken in a NASCAR day?
I have. It's been a while since I've been to a race. The last time I was there was 1986 at Daytona.
Okay.
And Bill Elliott won.
Well, that's an amazing memory that you got. I'm impressed as always. But no, it was, I got to say, for all of the pro athletic events, pro sports events that I've been to, and I hesitate to put NASCAR in the athletics category. I think it's a lot more closer to like the ancient Colosseum and kind of meets the entertainment industry than I would put it in athletics. Because when you think athletics, right, like I would think like prowess of human, capability, right? Here, the machines doing most of the work. But I got to say, that was my thoughts on it, my opinion on it before I actually went down and saw it in person. And Brandon and I are going to do a whole episode about this, about how incredible it was. Huge shout out to Texas Motor Speedway for inviting us down there. They put us up. They gave us the royal treatment. We got the garage passes, the pit passes. Like, we got to go down and hang out with the pit crews and all of that stuff. And my experience was like a lot closer to trying to squeeze like a state fair into one day than it was like a pro sports event, because you had the street fair out front with like foods and booths and all this stuff set up. And they brought in the band from Fort Hood to come in and play, march up and down the street and all that jazz. So that was fun. And all that starts by like 10 o'clock in the morning. The race didn't kick off until like noon or after, right? Like 1, maybe something like that. I can't remember because the whole day blurs together. But then we went down and we got to hang out, like I said, down inside of the circle on the inside of the track. They got us into the drivers' meeting beforehand, so we got to see like what that was like, to see them get the race brief and and all that jazz was really cool. And then we were like right there filming, dude, as these pit crews were working. And I've always known that the pit crews were impressive to watch. But holy shit, like when you're right there by the wall watching this like 4-second all out choreographed dance, those dudes are the athletes on the team. And that's what I realized, and I didn't know this, but they're actually starting to recruit former Division I athletes that don't go pro in football, basketball, and like the other major sports to come in and be on these pit crews. Because these dudes are slinging, those tires are like 45 pounds a piece. And they're slinging those tires around and working the air drill and working the jack and everything. Dude, it was incredible. It's incredible to watch.
Yeah, and you know what? I said 86 was the last time I went. My short-term memory isn't firing on all cylinders right now. Actually, it was last year that I went in Las Vegas to the Pennzoil 400. I took my daughter. And Chris, you'll get a kick out of this. I didn't tell her that we were going. Well, I did tell her that we were going to the race, but I didn't tell her how we were getting there. I told her that we were taking a Holocaust bus tour where a bus would come pick us up, and then we'd be paired up with the Holocaust survivor, and they would play a film, and we would have a continental breakfast on the bus ride, and there would be lectures about the Holocaust. And so, so we wake up at the hotel. We're staying on the outside of Las Vegas. A car comes to pick us up, and I'm like, oh, this is a car that's going to transport us to the bus, and we're going to meet Myers Fitkin, who is the Holocaust survivor assigned to us, and he'll sit with us during the ride.
Right.
And eventually I let her in on it. We ended up at the airport over to the private side, and I had booked us a helicopter ride from Harry Reid Airport to the racetrack and then back. So I got to kill two birds with one stone, take her to the event, and also give her a helicopter tour of Las Vegas.
Nice. Nice.
Yes.
Was she excited about doing the Holocaust tour thing that she didn't get to do?
No, she thought it was weird, and she thought it was another one of Dad's pranks, which it was. She was like, this is going to be really weird if, in fact, it's a Holocaust bus tour, and it turned out not to be one. I was just trying to come up with, like, you know, the weirdest possible combination of things in a NASCAR event and then Holocaust remembrance. I thought were like the two weirdest combos I could put in to the story.
That is absolutely hilarious, dude. I have a funny Vegas story myself. The last time that I was at NTC, we flew out of Vegas to get back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and we had done our booking for our hotel in Vegas through the Army's. It's called is it DHS or it'll come back to me, but the Army has like a program. You go in and you plan your trips out so that way they can book your stay, book your travel, and track your government travel card and all that stuff, right? So they help you with that and play booking agency and then also monitor your spending, right? But anyway, so we booked it through that, and when we showed up to the hotel, we just assumed that it was going to be the one closest to the airport, and I can't remember what hotel that it set us up with, whether it was like a Hilton or an IHG or whatever the brand name of the hotel was, right? The parent company. Well, we show up there and the dude's like clickety clackety, and he goes, guys, I don't have any reservations for you in here. And we were like, that's so weird. And we showed him, like, here's our receipt. And he goes, oh, and he goes, he pulls out, he goes, oh, you guys are at the one downtown. And he gives us the freaking address, right? And so we get in the car and we drive downtown. Well, it turns out it was the Tropicana. That's where the Army booked us to stay into.
Nice.
And shenanigans immediately ensued. It was a wild night. So, but all good times. So what do we got on deck today, man? What do you want to talk about?
You know what? Now that you brought up flying, how did you guys go back and forth to Texas? What airline did you fly?
Southwest this trip.
Have you ever flown Spirit?
Do I look like somebody that would fly the Spirit? No.
You know, I've flown Spirit in the past, and I'm trying to think, you know, when they went out of business, I was trying to think how many times I flew on them. And I remember one in particular time where I had booked my flight and I had read everything on the online booking when it came to luggage and fees and stuff that you normally, you wouldn't think of if you were booking a normal flight. So I was prepared for it. And I remember checking in, and a guy next to me was with his family and just got totally jammed up for the amount that he had to pay for baggage fees. And I felt kind of sorry for him because he didn't read all the fine print or go through all the prompts that he should have when booking online. And I thought that was kind of, dirty pool of them. So I tried to avoid them, but that flight was, it was fine. It was from Los Angeles to probably Fort Lauderdale, I would imagine. This was maybe 15 years ago or so. But, that was my only sort of experience with them. And I don't know how much of their reputation was brought on by themselves and how much of it was social media.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like, honestly, the only thing that I know of Spirit is what I've seen from their viral social, right? It's like, Oh man, dude, I feel like being completely and totally disrespected today. I feel like I want to hear the music of everybody around me. I want to be in the smelliest place possible and possibly get into a cage match while I'm on the plane. Bro, have I got the airline for you? Spirit Airlines it is, dude. Right? Like that's
You know, it's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he does a lot of aerial work. He does sporting events and he does reality shows and commercials where he operates a camera called a Cineflex, which is mounted to the helicopter or any other type of aircraft, and they fly around the events and everything. And I asked
yeah.
him if he had ever flown Spirit, and he said he did. He said his manager booked him on a Spirit flight from Burbank to Las Vegas. And I said, well, what was your experience like? He's like, it was like being in a Walmart and, at probably 2,
In the
3
morning.
a.m. And then he said, well, it was more like a dive bar, like a biker bar where just everybody on there just had the vibe that they were ready to throw down, because on most flights, everybody's pretty quiet as they sit down and take their seats. He was like, they were just loud and everybody was loud. And the guy who was sitting directly behind him, was being very boisterous. And he's the type of person, if someone were to, my friend was saying this, that guy was the type of person, if someone were to say, hey man, you need to shut the fuck up, there would be a fight that
Right.
would ensue. He said it just had that vibe of going into a bar where you had, people who had been drinking or doing whatever drugs. You just get that feeling that's, a fight could break out at any time. That was his experience with Spirit. But looking into the company itself, I did a little digging on it, and it started as a freight company where they would move auto parts from Detroit to Cleveland, and then started expanding and expanding more. So then they started flying the auto parts around, and then when the airlines were deregulated, they founded Spirit Airlines, where they would fly out of Detroit mainly to like Atlantic City, Las Vegas, and I believe like Fort Lauderdale or Miami, and would have travel packages for people in the Midwest that were affordable at the time. And that kind of Spirit was one of the first airlines to kind of go this sort of vacation club route, and that took off. And so they started adding more routes around the country, and until the freight company was no more and the airline was born.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I was I was listening to another commentator talk about the whole deal of Spirit going under, and I wasn't paying too much attention to it at the time, but apparently the US government blocked the $3.8 billion merger between JetBlue and Spirit Airlines, primarily because it believed, and I'm reading a thing on it in the background here by AI just to catch everybody up on it. I believe the deal would harm cost-conscious travelers by eliminating an ultra-low-cost competitor, which would lead to higher ticket prices, because I think something like 70% of air traffic, 80% of air traffic is basically owned by the big four, right? Like the big four
Right.
carriers. And I think JetBlue represents like 5% of the market. Then Spirit was even less. It was like 4% or something. So it's kind of interesting that the government thought that it would cause ticket prices to go up, because even if they were to merge and that went up to 9%, that's still an incredibly low section of the market share of travelers, as it were. And if they were still competing with, the big four, Delta, United, American, and I'm probably missing one. But if it was competing with them, like, they would still want to drive prices down in order to be competitive. So it's very weird to me. And that was under Merrick Garland's DOJ too, that they did that and they blocked that merger. So it's very strange to me that the government stepped in, and their reasoning to me doesn't seem to be very, I don't know, sound. Oh, American, Delta, United, and Southwest is the other big four. But yeah, it doesn't seem to me to be very sound. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I saw that as well. And at the time when they were talking about the merger, I was like, all right, maybe this will help out Spirit kind of turn itself around, get it on the right track as far as the type of clientele that they attract. The prices might go up just because, if, again, in my conversation yesterday, my friend was talking to the guy sitting next to him, and he's like, "Why do you fly Spirit?" He's like, "Dude, I paid $50 for the ticket. You know, if it gets canceled, I'm just out $50. I can figure out another way. So to me, it's worth the gamble." So if you increase the tickets by a little bit to kind of price out some of the more seedier characters that might be on there, then. Uh, then I think the business model works if you're trying to get away from that bad of a reputation.
Yeah.
But if you're just talking about, JetBlue consolidating with Spirit, and then that's going to raise ticket prices, I don't see that. I don't see that how, from any kind of a business standpoint that would make sense. It seems like that if you were to absorb another company, even though you have the cost for running that company, that you're still going to have the routes that they're flying is going to be your revenue stream. So I don't know where that added cost would come from.
Yeah, they say that the government's reasoning here was that it violated the Clayton Antitrust Act. So I'm going to do a little digging on that.
Dude, it's so funny when the government comes up with reasons why they can't do things or the reasons why they want to prosecute somebody. They always come up with, Johnson versus Kalibowitz, 1854. And it's like, what? Yeah, the president has already been set.
Right. Well, and it's funny too, because it was in the same commentary that I was listening to that made the point that, basically it's at the determination of the judge what violates antitrust or not. And so that's very interesting to me. And it, I think that the judicial branch, not necessarily like the Supreme Court, but just like the judicial branch writ large, like the federal judicial branch, is far exceeding the power lately, especially like maybe in the last 10 years it was designed to have, right? Like underneath the Constitution and underneath the original viewpoint of the founders. It was supposed to be the strongest of the three, but in order to limit its power, it was also supposed to be the most passive, right? The Supreme Court can't try cases. It can only deliberate on cases that are brought to it. But when it does deliberate, both Congress and the executive branch obviously have to go with, whatever the deliberation, the ruling of the justices is. But we've seen it obviously be completely and totally weaponized in the last 10 years when you have like 400 something like that federal judges. And the way the system works for anybody that hasn't caught on to it yet is like executive branch makes a ruling, and then some Yahoo in like DC or super liberal New York or California will sue, based on whatever standing they can come up with. And then that federal judge will be like, oh, whatever ruling, injunction against the federal branch, you have to completely and totally stop what you're doing based on this. And they cherry pick the courts that they go to when they do that because they know exactly who their allies on the bench are and who aren't. And then the other thing that they use the judicial branch to do, like in Roe v. Wade or the Chevron deference decision, the actual name of the case is escaping my mind at the time, which afforded the executive branch and subsidiaries of it, like the EPA and whatever, gave them special power to conduct things because of their expertise basically in the field. And the ruling, the idea was, the average person or even the average Congress member doesn't have the same amount of like expertise, using the EPA as example, when it comes to like the environmental sciences. So we outsource our laws, right? Or our it's not laws, but they were like federal dictates, right? Or ordinances and stuff like that to these members of these expert members of the executive branch in order to do that stuff. So, I know that you vote on your Congress members out there, average American citizen, but trust me, the judges and the experts at the EPA, they know what's best for you, right? And then everybody saw what happened during COVID when it's like OSHA. They went to OSHA to enforce the mask mandates, right? Like the
Right.
Office of Safety and something for Workplace, whatever OSHA stands for. I can't remember. The guy that says that you have to have all 4 feet of your ladder on the ground, right? That's the guy that they went to make you wear a mask. But yeah, they've been abusing the judicial branch for a long time, and a lot of people are finally catching on to it, which is really good. But it kind of brings up an interesting question. And Brandon and I were talking about this several weeks ago. I think that there needs to be a new mechanism for checking federal judicial power. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that sounds fine to me if the system worked that way, if we could actually trust the court system and the judicial system. But I think for me, in the pattern that I'm seeing, and I'm gonna sound black-pilled when I say this, I'm at the point now where I think it doesn't matter what the average person thinks or wants, because the powers that be are going to do exactly what they want. I was just watching a clip where they're building a AI data center in Utah, and everybody in this area where it's going to be built came out against it, and they're like, yeah, we've heard you and we don't care. We're going to continue forward building it.
Right.
So I feel that same way when it comes to the judicial system, when it comes to rulings, like you're talking about the merger. And the reason, that Merrick Garland said, oh, we can't do this. And to me, the merger, my personal opinion is I don't think that the elites, the government, want people traveling, and they want to eliminate air travel. They've already started doing it with automobiles by putting in the kill switch. Now a bill has been introduced to put the biometrics in there so it can scan your face and see how you're doing and make a determination if you're capable of driving your car or not. So to me, eliminating the cheapest airline where you could get the cheapest fares on is starting with that segment of the population, saying, okay, you know what, we're starting with these people who are looking for a good bargain. They're going to be the ones that aren't going to fly first. And then I think we're going to see a progression with JetBlue, and to me, we're going to be left with American, Delta, and maybe United, and those are going to be your airlines. They're going to cut routes, and air travel will only be reserved for the elites, as it was back in the 1940s.
Yeah, I'm researching this in the background. First of all, I agree with you. We all know that they want the 15-minute cities. I mean, they're actively showing us like what the designs are over in places like Qatar and UAE, right? And some of these places that are like super advanced with it. You'll own nothing. You'll be happy. Basically, you'll be contained, right, to a certain segment of the city. It's like super Blade Runner stuff, man. Like it really is. And what's even funnier to me is it's like I don't know if I can fully distinguish between sci-fi author and modern day prophet anymore based on the stuff that we're seeing. We got AI that's out here training itself now. And we were talking to a guy over the past weekend that has a lot of contacts in the defense industry and things like that. And he was telling us, I was having a conversation with so-and-so, a really good buddy of mine that works in such and such agency that's doing defense contracting. He goes, I asked him, at what point is the AI going to start being able to design and build basically its replacement, right? To start making its designs itself and start repairing itself and designing its replacements. And the guy was like, by the end of the year. Like, so it's here, right? Like, this isn't super out there sci-fi Terminator level. Like, it's here. And it's happening, and it's happening in the background. And in places like Google and Meta and in defense contracting, like they're actively doing it. Like Brandon and I have had an opportunity to interview people from Kratos that are out here making not semi but completely and totally autonomous aerial vehicles, right, that are designed to serve as a wingman for real pilots that are in the air. So, but anyway, getting back to this decision, I asked Jim and I over here, basically, are these rulings as they pertain to the Clayton, what was it called? The Clayton Antitrust Act, are they completely and totally at the discretion of the judge? And so Jim and I was like, are not purely at the judge's personal discretion. They are governed by established legal standards and a burden shifting framework. However, judges possess significant power in interpreting complex economic evidence and determining the remedies. And then he jumps out here and he goes, the rules of reason. Many Clayton Act cases are decided by using a rule of reason analysis. Judges weigh a practice's anti-competitive effects against its pro-competitive benefits, which requires significant interpretation of economic models and expert testimony. That sure sounds to me like it's completely and totally at the judge's discretion.
It totally is. How do you want me to rule on this? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Done.
And it's funny too, because it just goes to show you, anytime the government gets involved in something that it doesn't understand, hey, Mr. Judge, I know that you've spent the last 30 years of your life or whatever becoming a legal scholar and expert and really understanding law. Now I'm going to ask you to step into the realm of, advanced economics and rule on something that's going to affect the United States economic climate, right? It's totally dumb to me. And it also speaks to the, what do they call it? The argument of authority, right? Just because this guy's got all the papers on the wall behind him, listen to everything that the man says, right? He's obviously an expert. How far has that gotten us?
Yeah. When has the expert class ever been right? Consistently? Never. Yeah. Oh, dude, I'm old enough to remember when I was told the expert class said that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Yep, been there.
I was old enough to remember when the expert class told us that if we went into a pool, that we ran the risk of fecal sheddings and we could spread COVID. Fecal sheddings were my favorite.
Well, yeah, which means you're also old enough to remember, and a lot of people don't know, Anthony Fauci 1.0, when everybody in the United States was going to catch AIDS. Like, even if you were in a pool with somebody that had AIDS, you were going to catch AIDS, dude, just from being next to them.
Oh, yeah.
And they were developing the AIDS vaccine.
Yeah.
So he literally, yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, which they experimented on orphans, and all the mass graves that were found was on Randall's Island in Manhattan.
It's absolutely wild to me that he was allowed, and go look this up if you think that I'm bullshitting you, right? Not you, obviously, whoever's watching this, right? Go look this up if you think that I'm bullshitting you. He was allowed to try that play twice in a row. Didn't work the first time. He didn't generate enough public outrage from it. People were like kind of still looking around left and right. And they were like, I don't know about this AIDS thing. Like I'm in New York City and I still haven't yet met a person. Right. Like that's what people were kind of saying. The second time, what he got on his side was the mass formation psychosis of being able to drive everybody into their homes. And anybody that's ever studied mass formation psychosis, one of the most important ingredients is isolation. You have to isolate people first, and they got it. And so the second time it worked really well. Unfortunately.
Yeah, Fauci was, when AIDS broke out, he was the villain in this. Right. He was the villain until he started funneling money to CARE. Not CARE. I can't remember the gay organization. Anyways, and that's what he had his big push for AZT, and a lot of people believe that AZT is what caused people to die who had HIV, which I don't even know. I mean, maybe you could answer this. Have they ever isolated the HIV virus?
They do, yeah. It's actually very close to the same virus that causes chickenpox. It's very close. The thing about the HIV virus and what we eventually found out is that it's incredibly, incredibly fragile, and it can't survive outside of a human host, even in normal temperature, for very long. Like the temperature range that HIV survives in is so specifically narrow. Yeah, it's ridiculous, which is one of the reasons that it literally requires direct human to human swapping of fluids of some kind in order for it to survive. Yeah.
Lovely.
Love
but the best, getting back to, Fauci being the villain amongst the gay community during the AIDS outbreak, during COVID, he was the gay community's hero. It was like every gay person that I knew, if you said anything bad about Anthony Fauci, they're like, what, are you a science denier? What are you talking about? And it's like, what's going on here? Generations of gay people hated this guy because they accused him of murdering other gay people. And now you're willing to trust the guy who was once accused of being a mass murderer of gay people and saying, oh, you got to put on a mask if you're going to come inside the restaurant. It's like, what's going on here? Is it the fact that everybody has a short-term memory, or is it the fact that, it's not just gay people. I would even say for your vast majority of leftists love to conform. As much as they like saying that, they're anti-establishment or whatever, they're the biggest conformists I've ever seen before in my life. And they want everybody to conform to what they do.
Right. Yeah, no, that's exactly correct. It's like it starts with you have to accept it, right? Or sorry, it starts with you have to tolerate it, and then once they can get you to tolerate it, then it's you have to accept it, and then once you accept it, then it's like now you have to participate in it and celebrate it. That's the slide. That's exactly how it goes.
Yeah, where my whole thing is, hey man, do what you want to do as long as it's not affecting me, and as long as you're not hurting kids, I could give a shit.
Right.
Just, be you. But then it's like, oh no, you have to use these pronouns. What? I
Right.
didn't sign up for this. I thought it was totally fine that you wanted to get married or have your own bar or whatever without, the risk of you going to jail. Totally fine with that, but I felt like the goalpost kept moving and moving and moving until you're saying, hey, we're having a drag queen sit down
Right.
with 5-year-olds and tell them a story. And it's like, no, they should be like eating crayons and paste,
Right.
where that's very basic. What you're doing is you're trying to teach calculus to 5-year-olds.
Right.
Let's just start with the crayons and then move forward.
Yeah, no, 100%. If you look up, that goalpost is hot on your heels, dude. It's chasing you, right? This is why I had a really good conversation with a college friend of mine. We reconnected after a long time. It's been a long time since I talked to him, and he was always kind of your classic conservative, like socially conservative libertarian. Like that's how he described himself, and he still is largely. And I told him, I was like, I had my libertarian phase when I went through college. I really do like the idea of just like you do you and I do me, and we all just kind of go our separate ways, and good fences, good neighbors, and all that jazz. I wish I could still be a libertarian. I want to be like the inside of me wants to be. The problem, right, is that libertarians are inherently defensively minded. Because it's like, I don't want to mess with you and what you've got going on over there. Do you? Right? Leftists and progressive neo-Marxists are inherently offensively minded. They are. And they want what you have. And the fact that, you're over there, enjoying yourself bothers them to the core. Because you're not actively celebrating the thing that they tell you that you're supposed to be celebrating, right? And so that's one of the reasons that Marxism is still alive and well after all these years, because it's militant and offensive by nature, and libertarians will never be a serious party in the country, unfortunately. Even though I love you, libertarians, I love you. I feel you. I wish it could be that way.
Right. But also, you're getting back to, when you're saying the leftists want something, they want your stuff. To me, what they really want that they don't possess, that they can't have, that's nothing tangible, it's inherent happiness. When I see people who are hardcore leftists, I see very unhappy people. When I see communists who are like promoting communism, I see very unhappy people. You can read it on them. You could tell by just their faces that they just look very sad, and they're lacking just this inner kind of light, and they see that light in others and they want to snuff it out because they can't stand to see other people happy. So there always has to be some sort of misery that they're combating. And that, to me, it looks like it's all internalized with the changing of the hair, with the septum piercing, to try and make them look more fierce and trying to make them look like an individual, when all they're doing is conforming. It's mass conformity is what they're going for, and also snuffing out the happiness of people who are just trying to live their own life.
Well, it's a practicing of an orthopraxy too. That's the reason that they do the performative steps of showing up at the protests when they're beckoned, and they use terms like you have to be an ally and you must support this and post the whatever in your social media and use the correct language. They dictate what language you're allowed to use, and then they all start conforming, like you said, in their appearance. That's all part of an outward orthopraxy, right? In the same way that if you're a member of Judaism, you've got the circumcision, the marking of the body, and also the hat that you wear that says that I am, you do the New York Jew way better than me, but that,
and going to temple, and then after that we're going to the deli.
Yeah, but the whole point is you can look and you can see, because I follow the orthopraxy. And in the same way, that's what leftists do. They follow it. They mark themselves so as to look like the group of people that they try to belong to, and they make sure that they practice the religious tenets of it as you were. It's much closer to a religion really than it is a political movement in my viewpoint. And I really do think, if you kind of follow back to do what we're supposed to do on this show, to kind of show the roots and dig into where this stuff comes from, if you actually follow back some of the deepest tenets of the Marxist movement, you will find that a lot of it has its roots in witchcraft, has its roots in your secret schools, right? Like the Freemasonry and the stuff like that, and these like cabals that exist. Feminism didn't actually just spring out of women wanting to be liberated and get out of the kitchen. Feminism is actually deeply rooted in Wiccan witchcraft. Like,
I can see that.
Go look it up. You'll find it. It's not even hiding, and that's what's funny. And a lot of the original big names of the feminist movement in the early 1900s, they were using language like, no, we have to destroy the family in order to liberate women, to get them out of the house.
Right.
One of the quotes is my absolute favorite, is like, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's like, if given a choice to marry and settle down, the average woman will take that. So we must take that choice away from them and force them out of the home. And you're just like, man, this doesn't sound like equal rights. This sure sounds like setting up a gynocracy. That's what it sounds like you're trying to do.
Yeah, the gynocracy. I mean, just look at Betty Friedan. It's always the ugly bitches that want to do this. It's never the good-looking ones
Right.
that, raise the torch and say, hey, this is what needs to be done because we're being oppressed. I think for most women, we're pretty content. Everybody's different. They're outliers. But to me, there was nothing better than having, the dad who worked, who was able to afford a house, a car, and then a summer home and a boat for that summer home.
Right.
And then, once you start saying, oh, the only way that, for a female that you could be free is to get a job and pay taxes. How is that being free? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Hey, I know that you were spending all your time taking care of that guy's kids and, taking care of his home and providing him meals and sustenance and warmth and affection. Screw all that. I want you to take all of that, and I want you to give it to this guy over here that sits in the top office of this building who doesn't give a damn about you and will never do a damn thing for you. He wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire. He'll just hire somebody else. But spend all of your time working for him now.
Yeah, and then giving the government a third of what you make, and that's somehow liberating. I'm failing to see the connection here.
I never understood it. I never understood why people fell for it. Really, the lie in my lifetime was you have to be dual income in order to maintain a middle class lifestyle.
Right. And that's in my first marriage. That's what it was, because I was working freelance, the paychecks, weren't constant. It was like, work for 2 months and then you might have a month off and then work for another 3 months, 2 months off, that sort of thing. And so when it came time for us to have kids, it just my ex-wife was working at the time as I was working. It made more sense for insurance wise, for her to keep working at a regular job where there was a constant paycheck.
Right. Well, anyway, I do have a couple questions. This is going to kind of be a little bit of a hard left. Am I cool to introduce a new topic here? You got any more? Okay. So this one's kind of interesting. It seems like the mask has slipped off of a couple guys here. One, Nick Fuentes, and two, Tucker Carlson, and both of them are kind of getting blasted online, rightfully so, I think. But Nick Fuentes basically, on one of his streams recently, said, he is now a moderate Democrat and is basically anything that we have to do in order to impeach Trump, like that's what we need to do. He's telling all of his followers to go and vote for Democrats because the Trump administration is completely and totally rotten and evil, and it must be stopped at all costs, right? And so his plan is to turn the government back over to the people that wanted to drive us into our homes during COVID, right? That wanted to force us to take vaccinations vaccinations of experimental medication, that wants to trans our kids. He wants to turn the government back over to the people that were run by individuals like that Sam Brighton who was stealing ladies' luggage in the airports, right? You remember all that
love
shit?
That guy.
Like, that's who he wants to give the government back over to. That's his plan because, Trump is just so very evil. And then Tucker Carlson got checked by a reporter from the New York Times, and forgive me, I can't remember your name, whoever the reporter is, but
Lulu something.
There you go. But she did, dude, I am a balls and strikes kind of guy. She did a good job checking him on his BS and was like, recently in a podcast, you said, could this be the Antichrist? Referring to Donald Trump, and Tucker Carlson said unequivocally, those words never left my lips. And then she checked him on it and, played him the soundbite. And it's like, that was quote, end quote, my man. That is exactly what you said, which I don't understand why people, well, I mean, I do. It's the same thing we were talking about, the AIDS epidemic with Fauci and everything earlier. People have the memory of a goldfish. But if you go back and look at sound bites from Tucker Carlson back during his CNN days, back during the bow tie Tucker arc, right? He's on camera talking about how his dad worked for the CIA. And then later on, I believe after he had the Tucker Carlson network, he went on and amended his story and said, oh, I didn't know that my dad worked for the CIA until after he died. And it was like, yeah, but see, I remember back in 2001 when you said your dad worked for the CIA. You're on camera, my dude, and the internet's forever. And thank God the internet is forever, because a lot of this stuff is getting undone by people that have got nothing better to do than to dig through the archive websites and pull this BS back out, which didn't used to exist back in the cable news days. But anyway, yeah, so both these guys stepped in it. I personally think we're seeing the downfall of two managed assets. I'll just say it that way without saying who I think they're being managed by. But I think we're seeing the fall of two managed assets right here. I'd love to get your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, I would like to believe that both of them are original people, but then again, for all I know, they could be time traveling holograms from another dimension. It just happened to land here to add more confusion to us mortals who are living amongst them.
Right.
Fuentes, from all accounts, it seems like his growth was very grassroots. And from everything that I know and everything that I've read about him, being at whatever East Coast university it was and being booed and then, starting, live streams and then getting debanked and deplatformed and everything else. And, I'm defending Nick Fuentes's freedom of speech, not what, I'm a free speech absolutist. I don't care what he says. Most of what he says, I don't agree with, but I agree with the right for him to say it. And I think that being debanked and deplatformed is total BS.
Same.
With the rise of his popularity, how much, in the beginning it was probably grassroots. I think there were disaffected people around the country, kids who felt the same way he did. So I think that, he had a pretty, organic following to begin with. But the higher that he rose, how much of it was, being throttled a little bit more, which, none of us will ever really know, if there was that kind of throttling going on. And now to the point where he is to say, well, I'm going to support Democrats now because the GOP needs to be, exploded or blown up and rebuilt. I feel that way about both parties. I feel like both of them needed to be reformed in some way.
Yeah.
And I think there should even be a third party, but that will never happen. The system is, as I see it, is too big and too corrupt right now. And so what part of it do they play in that system? I don't know. I can't, I'm trying to wrap my head around what would be the end game for Fuentes and for Tucker to, were they placed as allies of Trump to begin with, knowing that they would do this heel turn later on? Or, because to me it seems like a natural progression for them to be, disenchanted with Trump and the way things are going, with him sort of defaulting, Trump defaulting to the whole neocon policy in being a Mitt Romney. Is that the reality, or is it the reality that they knew that he was going to get into this position with their help, by boosting him in the audience and controlling the narrative, and eventually there would be a heel turn because they knew that they could usher in, some sort of communism light. So I don't know. I mean, getting back to Tucker, it's hard for me to like go down the road of somebody whose parent does something and then them themselves being used as an asset later on. I'm sure it's possible. I'm sure it's been done before. I don't know the likelihood of that. Again, it's just, I don't know. What do you think?
I think that when I said that they were managed assets, right, it's a little bit censorious, and people are going to immediately have visions of, secret communique and handing off of talking points and a grand master plan. And I do think that there is a plan, in so much as communists want to see America communized, right? And so like they are going to forever work to that end. But it's a forever push to the left, right? And you've got a lot of people that are in every movement that are just there in order to get theirs, right? Like whatever their issue of choice is to see rammed through. It's a real, like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and we're all pushing in the same way. So it's like, I'm just here for the LGBTQ madness, right? You're over here to try to enrich yourself off of gay race communism or whatever, but we can at least pull to the left together, and to that end, when I say managed assets, I think it's a lot more insidious and a lot more not so in your face, right? And I try to spend a lot of time pointing out to people like just how the propaganda machine works, and how subtle yet effective it is, right? So I don't necessarily think that they were privately emailed, talking points or whatever, and be like, execute order 66, and now they're stabbing Donald Trump in the back. I think that a lot of times what happens is whoever controls the algorithm, all they have to do is shift what the bot traffic does just ever so slightly one way or another. And these guys, having built their entire business model on social media and virality, they're just naturally going to follow that algorithm, because that's what provides the clicks, and that's what provides the attention, and that's what keeps them relevant, if that makes sense.
Right. And I can see that. I can see them, seeing the writing on the walls and saying, okay, what it looks like is going to happen right now is that the Republicans are going to lose the House and the Senate. We're going to go through all these impeachments. So if I start laying the groundwork now saying I'm against Trump,
Right. I'm one of the good ones.
Right.
Hands up, don't shoot.
Right. And so when that turn happens, they look like a moderate going, oh, as much as, volatile as, Nick Fuentes could be, he nailed this one. He was one of the first to turn his loyalty on Trump. Same way with Tucker Carlson, once being a champion of Trump and MAGA, Tucker Carlson, lost faith in Donald Trump's, ability to lead with this misstep with Iran. So, yeah, I see that as a real possibility of, this sort of, if you want to call it a heel turn within MAGA of Fuentes and Tucker at the same time. I think, yeah, it's probably a business decision saying, that the tide is shifting, and if the course overcorrects, I still want to be in a position where I've got some kind of an audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brandon and I were pointing this out too a couple years ago now, even when they started, picking up traction and getting big. Tucker's been big for a long time, but especially when Nick Fuentes started picking up traction and getting big, as we were like, listen to the arguments that he's making. This was the whole, like we were trying to point out, horseshoe theory before the whole woke right or retard right or whatever they're calling it now took off in the zeitgeist and became part of the lexicon. Brandon and I were pointing out horseshoe theory forever ago, and we're going, all he's doing is is making the same friend-enemy distinction arguments. He's making the same in-group, out-group delineations, right, in his arguments. All he's doing is he's just coming at it from a, like, they're being anti-white and we have to have a white affinity. And but I'm like, it's still neo-Marxist progressive tactics. He's just doing it on the right. We were saying a long time ago, don't fall for it. Right? Don't fall. You just, it sounds good to you because that makes you the in-group this time, is what we were trying to tell people. And it's like, don't fall for it. But you made the statement the last time that we talked about him. And I agree with you that you can't deny the kid is a super highly effective communicator. Like he is. But then again, so was also a very highly effective communicator. So
the guy who ruined facial hair, one specific style of facial hair forever, it ruined Charlie Chaplin's career.
Yeah. But, on these two guys, I pointed out Tucker's on-again, off-again knowledge of his dad's CIA involvement. My issue with Nick Fuentes, and I also pointed this out a long time ago, is that he was at the J6 event. And there's lots of video of him with a bullhorn inciting the crowd, not necessarily to enter the Capitol and everything, but he was there and he was getting people riled up. And then it was after that he went through the deblanking and the deplatforming thing and all. And I was trying to point out to people for a long time, I'm like, if that guy was there, right? And we've seen what happened during the fallout of J6 and everybody that got indicted and grandmas were being sent to jail and all this stuff. Like the government was kicking in the doors of 70-year-old ladies that just happened to be on the premises and hauling them off for trial. And I'm like, but they're not touching him. They're not touching him. And then supposedly he's been debanked and deplatformed everywhere. How the hell is the algorithm carrying him? Can you explain? Can you explain this to me? Can anybody explain this to me? If he's debanked and deplatformed all over the place, and also if he's saying, him and Candace Owens both, if they're saying the thing that you're not allowed to supposedly say on the internet, why are they two of the biggest streamers in the world right now? Can you please explain that to me? So that's why I've been saying for a long time, managed asset. Now, whether it's, like I said, there's actual, surreptitious meetings in the park and dead drops and all that to get them their talking points, or if it's just somebody's looking out for somebody behind the scenes and tweaking the algorithm and the bot traffic, in order to shine a spotlight on something like, being that I was a Green Beret in a former life, information warfare is absolutely one of the 9 core missions that we do. And so there's always a difference, and I try to point this out to people, that there's a difference between an asset and a you can have an asset and you can have a the word just flew out the back of my head. But oh man, I hate it when that happens. I've been blown up one too many times, guys. So sometimes I get up on a word and it's a key word and then it goes out the back of my head. But basically, an asset is something that you can get information from, or a source. So you can have sources and you can have assets, right? A source is something, and both of them can be either knowing or unknowing. That so sources are things that you get information from. Right. So just like journalists do. Now they can know that they're passing you information, or like if you bug somebody's phone and they don't know that you're listening to them, they could be an unknowing source. Assets are the same way. You can bump steer somebody to do a thing for you, and that would make them an unwitting asset because you knew what they were going to do anyway. So this would be thinking about, somebody that's going to already, that they're going to go to a meeting and have a meeting with somebody, right? Remember the Operation Exploding Pager? Like I know that so-and-so is going to go and have a meeting with somebody. He doesn't know that he's got a bomb strapped to him. Unwitting asset. And then click, boom, right? Versus the witting asset that actually puts the S vest on and then goes click, boom, right? So, but that's important for people to understand. So when I say a managed asset, still, that doesn't denote whether they're witting or unwitting in what they're doing. But I do fully believe that they are assets. If that, had to go around the horn and explain that.
Right. I think I think that's quite possible. Just like I think it's possible too that there are also social media assets that play the same role. Cat Turd being one of them. Cat Turd, for some reason, just exploded onto social media. Yeah. And seeing interviews with him and seeing some of his posts, he has got to be one of the dumbest motherfuckers I have ever seen before in my entire life. But for some reason, the algorithms push everything that he's saying. Same thing with Brooklyn Dad. Again, one of the dumbest motherfuckers I have ever seen before in my life. And you would think that what I think is being done are people who, like myself, I look at Cat Turd, dumb. Why is he being pushed? I look at Brooklyn Dad, dumb. Why is he being pushed? Why they're being pushed? Because they represent all the negative stereotypes that somebody from the right would have against somebody from the left, and then somebody from the left would have against somebody on the right. That's why I feel like they're being pushed, and I think that they're managed assets as well. Whether I don't think they probably are now to a certain degree with money that's coming in from their Patreon pages or whatever other revenue stream that they have. But there was something there where whoever's controlling the algorithms decided to push them, whether they were told by outside forces, hey, push these two or push these four or whatever, let's see what happens. And then once you open up, the flow of money, then everything is manageable then.
It's true. And one thing that you just brought up, a lot of people don't understand. It's kind of easy to rebuff not for everybody, but it's easier to rebuff like the initial approach. If it's just like, hey, I need you to do a thing, it's going to be you're going to be very, very uncomfortable with it. Right. You're almost always asked, if you're going to be a winning asset, to violate some piece of your ethical code of whatever that is. And I could get into like the whole reason that that's done is like if you cause somebody moral injury, once you can get them to violate their ethical code one time, it's like the frog in the boiling pot. Then you can like down the road get them to do worse and worse things all the way up to and including, right? Maybe trying to shoot the president, but just saying, I don't know, would be an example, right? But in the same vein, if you want to warm somebody up to being on the payroll, right? You don't walk up to them and offer them like a crap ton of cash right up front to violate their ethical code, right? Because it becomes very easy to be like, are you kidding me? I would never do that. I have integrity. But like you said, if you slowly turn on the faucet, right, to where now all of a sudden they have an entire revenue stream that they've been relying on for their lifestyle, and it slowly came on, right? Especially to the point where it's like they believe that they have their autonomy with what they're pushing and what their message is, and they believe that they have agency. And then once you need them to get bump steered, right? Vis-a-vis, remember Bindergate? And now we need everybody to what was the line? Most something administration of all time.
Transparent,
most transparent. Yeah, because they all said most transparent. Or the ballroom. Everybody saw Benny Johnson, Gunther Eagleman, Cat Turd, just name them, right? Come out. This is why we need the ballroom. Right?
Yeah,
just instantly.
Yeah, with the blueprints that look like a replica of King Solomon's temple.
Where'd you get that? What? I have questions. I have a few questions.
I have questions too. Are we building the third temple?
Well, the only good news about that is the Bible says where it has to be built. So they might be trying to replicate it, but that won't have any eschatological bearing, even if they do put it there. Are they building somewhere where they can continue to sacrifice children? I don't know. You tell me. But anyway, that being said, so like I was saying though, so it's like when you all of a sudden need to put the screws to somebody and get them to completely and totally debase themselves and push a narrative because you've built up this slow revenue stream all the time, it becomes now very, very hard because now you're talking about an entire lifestyle that you think was built on your hard work that you have agency in is going to get turned off and go away.
You're believing your own hype at this point.
There you go. See? And so that makes now it doesn't even matter if the asset is winning or unwitting. They'll do anything to maintain the status, right? Wealth. I say this all the time. What are the three things that a man wants and he will do anything for? Wealth, power, prestige.
Right. Well, it's a Milli Vanilli effect. Milli Vanilli, spent their career lip syncing and bought into their own hype and like, oh, we could sing. And they did. And their album was an absolute disaster because they didn't go along with the program. They bought into the fact that they were these great performers and taking the world by storm,
Right.
and wanted to get away from what made them famous. So, yeah, if they would have just, the people who are pulling the strings, if they just would have followed, they could probably have milked another 5 years out of their career.
It is what it is. Anyway, you had another one that you wanted to talk about, right? The boom boom at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, or almost.
Yeah, dude. When it first happened, of course, there was this whole rush of, different conspiracies that were running around. I saw everything from, this guy being a time traveler to the whole thing about the was it Henry Martinez, his posting with the Pepe the Frog and the tuxedo, and how he had posted the name Cole, whatever his last name is.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Like 2 years ago. I keep wanting to say
Cole. On the
Cole
random the random Twitter post.
Yeah.
That it was like an account and just one post to it and it was his name. Yeah, I saw that. It's weird as shit.
Yeah, that was crazy. And then the video came out. First, we saw this, super blurry, grainy video of this dude just appearing in the hallway and running through where the metal detectors were. And then the TSA agents, the women all falling on top of each other. And then the one Secret Service guy getting down to a knee to look like, fire a shot at the guy. And then it was like, I think it was during Trump's press conference, like a couple hours after the shooting, is when he mentioned the ballroom again.
Yeah.
In this being a reason why you would have it. And again, the press, going back to what the press should be, they should be holding, elected officials accountable for their actions. That's not the way it is now. It's not the way it is in any kind of journalism, whether it's business, politics, or even sports. It's all about it's access journalism now. So you're going to write pretty much PR pieces for the people that you like and attack pieces for the people that you don't like.
Yep.
So even having the pretense of having an impartial media, you just can't host an event like the journalists or the media at the president's house. It can't be done. Just if there is any kind of integrity left in that profession, like I'm saying, just, from a total facade point of view, you just can't have it. The optics are terrible. And so, like, as you were saying, all these tweets start coming out, build the ballroom. It's like, oh God. And then when they said, oh, we found his manifesto, it was a confession letter.
Yeah.
Now this one sounds like he wrote it, whereas Tyler Robinson, I have a lot of questions about his text message to his boyfriend, who may or may not exist, who just was allowed to go away. I know, it's not related to Trump. It's the Charlie Kirk assassination, but this one, and also the selfie that came out with Cole. He comes across as the type that we had talked about, being on the left, being a part of this tribe, and then with his education, thinking he's a lot smarter than everybody else, and having sort of this savior syndrome where he's going to be the one who's going to rise up and get rid of Trump so the United States can get back to this progressive track that it was on with Obama. And
oh, sorry, I thought you were done. Please continue.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Just one last thought. And I think, with that kind of, I don't know. I'm not going to go down the route where I think he was an asset. I think he was co-opted just by, his intake of the social circles that he ran around with, and then seeing people like Tyler Robinson and seeing people like Luigi and thinking himself in a grandiose manner.
No, I completely agree with you. And my evidence for that would be the video that surfaced of him. He's a mechanical engineer or something is what he went to school for. Almost certainly a diversity pickup because of affirmative action, because he had a local news bit that he got interviewed for, and he came up with apparently a revolutionary brand new wheelchair brake that he was making. It was basically, have you not seen this?
Yeah, I have seen it. It's like made out of wood.
It was PVC pipe that like propped the chair up. And so to your point of like delusions of grandeur that I'm like smarter than I am, it's like, bro, the wheelchair has a handbrake on it. Like, what are you doing? You're not solving that is a solution looking for a problem. What you got right there, dude. That's somebody who woke up at 2:00 in the morning after a bender and was like, oh shit, I'm supposed to have a project for the for the fair tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Grizzly Man. Remember Grizzly Man? He's like, I'm protecting the grizzly bears. Yeah. It's like, bro, you're on federal land. They're already protected. How are you protecting the grizzly bear? It's like going to the zoo and camping out in front of the gorilla habitat and saying, I'm doing what I can to protect the gorillas.
Yeah. But you're absolutely correct. And these are like the Luigi Mangione, let's see, Ryan Routh, what was the other kid's name? Thomas Matthew Crooks. Like now that one, we did a full deep dive on Routh and Crooks. Crooks is a very weird case, and there is a lot of federal government overlap in that case, to include cell phone data that has him at a...
I'm not even sure that kid existed like Lance Twiggs.
I have some serious questions about that, but especially for these other guys, Routh, Mangione, the dude that shot Charlie Kirk, whose name flew out the back of my head, and then obviously now this guy, Cole Thomas Allen. Like, these are susceptible individuals that are largely isolated due to today's social media culture, that are just bombarded with a certain paradigm of information, which drives them into an echo chamber, into a silo, and then they're slowly radicalized. And then, like you said, you add on top of that the delusions of grandeur, right, that they have as part of their personality profile, and you have ready-made a dude that's like, well, if nobody else will do it, it falls to me, right? They think they're Thanos. Fine, I'll do it myself and put the glove on, but that's not who they are, right? But that's who they've been convinced to be by social media and by the news media. When you call Donald Trump Hitler, ad nauseum for 10 plus years, and then say things like we're in the second Holocaust, and you say things like, he's actually trying to kill, innocent black and brown people, and he's dragging them off. It's like AOC said, they're putting them in actual internment camps. I believe it was either she or some other, let me not say that because I don't want to defame, but it was one of a congressperson that was actually called them internment camps.
I heard concentration camps.
Concentration camps, yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, dude. So, and then, dude, it goes so far. I had a good buddy send me today something, and this is my problem with deconstructionism. It's very pernicious, because once you start deconstructing your worldview, if you don't provide yourself with some kind of backstop, right, suddenly you are in hot dog earth theory over here, because nothing's real, right? And there's almost everything is fake and gay, right? I work in social media, right? Like, I was just at an event where the entire point was, we're bringing you guys in because your social media, they called me an influencer, which I took offense at. I was like, I run a podcast, I'm, not an influencer. But anyway, they brought us in, and it's like, the whole idea is we want you guys to take what looks like organic content at the event. They said, make it look like a party that people don't want to miss out on. Now, we were there invited by Texas Motor Speedway and NASCAR. It was an awesome event. It really was a party. So it's like, when you see the videos and content that come out from it, we legitimately had a good time. But don't let that fool you in the point that technically, is that a micro psyop? Technically, is that count as propaganda? Yeah. So is the billboard on the side of the highway. In all technicality, it's trying to influence your behavior. So once you kind of step back and you understand that, and everything is fake and gay to a certain extent, right? It does have on some people, a profound like, well, what else are they lying about now? And then you start, and especially when institutions destroy their credibility, like the FBI did under the Biden administration, and like what OSHA did, and what the DOJ, has continually done, even under this administration. Largely, I feel like, it does. It has that effect on people, and so then you follow it, and now I'm getting videos of people that it's like, I find it funny. It's like Anne Frank was a total psyop and didn't exist, and her diary was completely and totally fabricated. Members of this video that this guy shared with me was like, members of the German government have debunked the fact that it was written by Anne Frank. And I was like, my brother in Christ, as if the German government wouldn't have a vested interest in disproving the diary of Anne Frank. You think maybe, it's like, source, bro, come on.
Right.
Like, let's come at this with a little bit of the ability to have nuanced thinking, critical thinking. Can we just do that?
It's awfully hard to, for myself, I think everything is a lie until I work it out in my head that it's not. Like this whole thing, with the shooter at the correspondence dinner. I was like, okay, what psyop are they working? Okay, let me run down these rabbit holes to see if there's anything to this. And the conclusion that I came to at the end was, this is a misguided guy. I don't think there's anything, further than that. I don't think it's some kind of intense psyop or any kind of, government program that he was engaged in. In this case, I really truly believe in Occam's razor.
No, I do agree with you. And I did want to talk to you, though, about some of the weird stuff surrounding it, because still the Trump administration can't seem to get its messaging correct, which I will never understand. But can you explain to me, riddle me this, Batman, why is Benny Johnson immediately posting either an AI mock video of the thing, or at least an AI doctored video of it right after the fact, where it's like, apparently the angle, have you seen it? The angle of this dude come running out of the stairwell or whatever it is, and he's carrying a sign at first,
Right.
and
Then it goes away.
and then the sign just disappears into his face, and now and I'm like, why are we pushing AI slop? Do you think Benny Johnson just got duped in the video that was given to him, as like maybe I got a chance to get the scoop on an angle that nobody else has seen before, and just didn't do his due diligence with it? Or do you think it could be something more nefarious than that?
That's tough because it's Benny Johnson, where you talk about somebody that, it has something to gain from it, and it has some outside sources, part of his, they're in his orbit as far as messaging goes, yeah, I mean, and also too, again, it might be Occam's razor. He may have come across the video and wanted to be the first to put it out there, and then you have people saying, okay, taking a closer look at it, and in his, quest to be the first with something and go viral with it, he fell for the AI slop, and then people started nitpicking and saying, why is he holding a sign? And then all of a sudden the sign morphs into his face. And then it's like, oh, he's a time traveler. And then, then everybody starts going down that rabbit hole. I think in this case, I don't think it was deliberate. I think it was a rush to be first.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, but it does highlight one of the problems, that if you're the Trump administration and you pull these social media influencers into your sphere to where everybody knows that they're in a group thread with you, for just kind of simplistic terms of explaining this, to where it's like, hey, the talking point that we're going to push on this one is the ballroom. And everybody goes, Roger, and then they push the ballroom, right? So it's like everybody knows that you're a mouthpiece for the administration. That's fine. You chose your team. My wife says all the time, everything is propaganda. Just choose your flavor, right? And then understand that you're being propagandized. I think that she's very wise when she says it that way, and I think you're very wise when you say the automatic standpoint should be skepticism until it's proven true or false. That's the way that I go about my media literacy too. I don't believe anything on face value, right? My granddad, God rest his soul, before he died, told me, this was like back in the early 2010s. He was like, don't believe anything you hear and only half of what you see. And if he could be alive today to see AI, like, dude was a prophet in his own time, and I took that to heart. But back to the problem this highlights is, like, if you are recognized as in the orbit of the administration, and that you're a mouthpiece for the administration, then it becomes hard for the administration to distance itself from you when you slip up and you do things like that, because they see it as coming from Donald Trump. Right. And so now everybody's already looking for bodies to stack at Donald Trump's front door. Right. And so it's like, hey, man, if you're going to be an ally to the Trump administration, like, stop shanking them in the back every day. Like you're throwing that's a lot of NDs, dude. That's a lot of green on green that's going on inside of the administration.
But I feel like this term of the Trump administration has been so self-inflicted that it seems like it's being done on purpose. Like the dismantling of the coalition that he had to get him elected. It seems systematic to me. It seems like we're watching a controlled demolition of his presidency.
I do agree with you. And my explanation for that is a termed out president. I made a whole reel about this several weeks ago, that one of the things that you're actually watching is not the power struggle between the left and the right. The left is, they hate Donald Trump. Got it. I got it. You've been saying it for 10 years. What you're watching is who is going to be coronated or crowned to take over the coalition that Donald Trump built when he leaves. That's the power struggle that I think we're seeing. And as bloody as it was back during the 2020 election, during the primaries, when DeSantis tried to primary Trump, and how ridiculous all that got, it's going to be even worse this time around, because they're trying to control Donald Trump's coalition, and they're trying to hijack his legacy. And in order to do that, I mean, you're literally watching people line up to try to supplant the king, as it were, try to stab the king in the back. But the thing is, you can't be seen as holding the dagger when it's all over. Otherwise, MAGA will never accept you, right? So it's like you literally have a built-in system where like the surreptitiousness of it is the point. I can't be seen as the guy that stabs Donald Trump in the back, but I sure as shit want to be there when he falls over to pick up the crown before it hits the floor.
Right. Yeah. And I think you're seeing that kind of, we talked about Fuentes and Tucker, having this turn. I think you're seeing that within the administration as far as looking forward of what the power structure of the Republican Party is going to be like, and how they can position themselves that's going to be the most beneficial to them.
Yeah, 100%. That's where I put Dan Bongino and all of this, right? Like I pointed out before, there's a reason that he exited the FBI, came immediately back to his microphone, kind of used a bull in the China shop mentality of just, he put out the call. And then anybody that disagreed with it, a lot of people thought he was being petty when he started banning people that first day that he was back on Twitter left and right. And I was like, I think you guys are missing the forest for the trees. What he just did there was he drew a line and figured out who was with him and who was against him, so that they could designate teams. That's what he was doing. And then now his account serves as if you're still on this account, like you're one of the loyal. Like that's what they were doing. They were figuring out who was loyal and who wasn't. And then, he immediately started parading Donald Trump himself. I think he brought Stephen Miller through, although I can't remember. I know for a fact he brought Mark Levin over, and he started immediately rehabbing all of these Trump mouthpieces, through his microphone to start rebuilding. Well, not really even rebuilding the coalition, to start re-exerting power from inside this coalition, basically putting their stamp on, like, no, we're still in charge on the right. Like that's what that's all been about, and once you see the patterns and kind of understand how media works behind closed doors, like you can't unsee it. So
Yeah, and that part of it is really disappointing to me because it's no longer America first anymore. It's America second or third, and it's that coalition is gone. And I feel like I'm back in, like, 1996 when, Bob Dole was running against Clinton. It's just like, you guys got me again. Just when I thought that everything was going to turn around for the Republican Party and the Democrat Party would be an afterthought, you let them back in. Here we go again on this roller coaster ride. The more that, I read about, there was a guy from the Revolutionary War, and I became obsessed with him because his last name is Cunningham, and his Bloody Bill Cunningham, and he was a farmer in South Carolina, just wanted to be left alone, right? And so he was a colonist. And so when the British came in and the Revolutionary War kicked off, they're like, hey, we need you to fight against the British. He's like, I really don't want to. And they're like, no, come on. So he's like, all right. So he joins, has a couple of battles, does really well. All the colonists are, gravitating toward him. He's a natural leader. He says, all right, give me my own regiment. And they're like, nah, we're not going to give you your own regiment. You're just going to keep fighting. And he's like, no, you guys are making bullshit decisions. I can make better decisions, and these guys like me better. And they're like, nah, we're going to keep you where you are. And he's like, fine, I quit. So they wouldn't let him quit, and they arrested him for desertion. And he ends up like in Bermuda, then comes back to the United States. And this time he forms a militia that fights along the British. And he becomes the nastiest guy that, one of the nastiest people in the Revolutionary War, and goes around just slaughtering troops from the on the colonist side. And then eventually is caught and then banished to like Puerto Rico. He does some gets on a couple of pirate ships here and there in the Caribbean for a bit, and then eventually ends up in St. Augustine. But it's to me, this kind of encompasses a lot. This story to me relates to how a lot of us feel, where we felt that we were part of a movement, and then the movement left us, and we're like, okay, well, we're gonna go find a different side. And I think you see a lot of people who are breaking away from the support of Trump to be like, you know what, just leave me alone. You guys have lied to me one too many times, and I've had it. And you know what, this next one, I'm just gonna sit it out.
Well, hopium is a hell of a drug. We all got
Yeah.
caught up in it between 2020 and 2024, for sure. And being totally fair, I think the Trump administration has put some serious dubs on the board when it comes to like foreign policy. But I have not been shy about saying that I think domestic policy needs, like, you got to be able to walk and chew bubble gum at the same time, And the thing about the Constitution is it gives almost total and plenary authority to the executive branch to conduct foreign policy with very little oversight from Congress. They have very little power to check that. Domestic policy is a lot harder, and there's a lot more constraints on the Constitution and what the executive can do, here at home. But they have not done a very good job. You can say it's because Democrats are standing in their way. Okay, point. But they've also stepped on a lot of rakes, to your point, and I think that too. So domestic policy is something that they're very weak in, and they need to get a hell of a lot better in it if they want to continue to have the goodwill of the American people. Do the things that I elected you to do, right, as it were. But you brought up another really good point, and I think it's important enough to highlight, and that is, a hero needs a villain, and a villain needs a hero to exist in the same story. Because without a villain to fight against, what is a hero? He's just a dude. And
Right.
what is a villain without a hero, without a nemesis, to oppose? Is just a dude doing bad things. And so in that same vein, the Republican Party needs the Democratic Party, and vice versa, as much as they want to fight against each other, because you always have to have something to campaign against. And so they don't actually have a vested interest in seeing the Democratic Party fracture and go away. Because then who are they supposed to campaign against and get all their social media clips about, and who are they supposed to dunk on? What libs are they supposed to dunk on? And they also don't have neither party has a lot of vested interest or good to be gained from moderating either and coming back to the middle, because then if you do that and you realize that, oh, we are all Americans and we can't just go back to arguing about maybe tax policy instead of some of these existential threats that we've made the other side out to be, then again, you lose that the hero loses the villain on both sides if you do that. So for better or worse, and I think for a lot worse, unfortunately, we're in this doom loop. Like
Yes.
both sides have decided to run completely and totally to the opposite sides of the polls, demonize the other side. The right has completely adopted Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals, where in the past, they tried to argue on the facts and merits and things like that. Now they're completely saying, you hear them, the talking points come out all the time that it's like, well, this is the efficient way to beat your enemy politically. So it's like, if we're going to be in power, the ends justify the means. Politics has all become very Machiavellian in that form. And it's like, can you even hear yourselves though? Right? Why not? Why
Yeah.
not use it? Maybe it came to us for a reason. Destroy it! Cast it into the fire! Don't put on the ring! But they couldn't help themselves. And now here we are. Like I said, we're caught in the doom loop.
Yeah, well, it's kayfabe.
Right.
We're watching professional wrestling, and the kayfabe that is used in professional wrestling is also used to run our government. There's no Ric Flair unless there's a Ricky Steamboat. There's no Stone Cold Steve Austin unless there's a Triple H. And it's the same with the Republicans and the Democrats. If you don't have a foe that you're going after, and you don't have rabid fans on each side, that you're never going to win over the crowd. And I feel like all of us as citizens are just participating in a play where other people are writing the script, and we're cheering on who we feel like, our hero is. And when I say our hero or our team or whoever, but the outcome is scripted. And we don't know what the outcome is, but somebody else knows what the outcome is. And with each match that we see, or with each mic time that we see with television interviews or podcast interviews, we could see, another story arc ramping up and happening. And we get all excited, when an election rolls around. It's like, okay, this is our WrestleMania. Who's going to win? Is it going to be Hulk Hogan, or is it going to be Andre the Giant? And you have half the country wants Hulk Hogan and the other half wants Andre the Giant. And one half of the country is going to be happy and the other half is going to be sad. But what they have in common with professional wrestling is you look forward to, SummerSlam, where there's going to be a rematch, and again, you're just in this doom loop. The WWE has the doom loop perfect, of building story arcs, the story arcs changing, the baby faces and the heels changing. And a lot of times, the fans themselves will change on who turns babyface and who turns heel. And we're just being totally manipulated at all times when it comes to our political system.
No, 100%. And the other side of that too is if they can keep your eyes glued to what happens at the federal elections, because that's the pro league, as it were, then what are you not paying attention to, right? College, which would be your state level government, and then high school, which would be your local level government, your county, your city, municipality, like whatever it is. And I try to the system still works if you work the system, right? If you want to see your life actually get better, then go to your school board meetings, vote for your local school board, vote for who's running your county, right? Who the village president is, vote for those people, because those are the people that have, the most say, the most direct impact over your daily life. We got a chance to interview Sheriff Mark Lamb a couple days ago, right? And he made this point so well, because he was like, yeah, I was a sheriff in Arizona, Pima County, I believe. Somebody's going to check me on that if I get it wrong, right? But he goes, I was there during COVID, and as the county sheriff, I straight up said, I will not be enforcing COVID mandates in this county. So you can call me all you want, I'm not going to enforce it. That county had a better quality of life all throughout COVID than other counties that where the law enforcement marched in lockstep right next to the worthless politicians and doing what they wanted to do. So that's where you need to be spending your time, is the place where your vote actually has the maximum amount of power over what happens in your daily life, right? But that causes people to be involved, and then, you know, that's uncomfortable, and then you have to actually spend time like researching things like issues and topics and candidates, and you got to actually be invested in your community and care about your neighbors and things like that, and that's all very hard and sticky, right? But
Hey, you want to hear a quick Sheriff Lamb story?
of course.
All right. So back in 2018, I'm producing the show Live PD, right? And I'm in Springfield, Missouri with Sheriff Arnott in the Greene County Sheriff's Office. And so Mark Lamb and his wife come and they're visiting Sheriff Arnott, and we all go out to dinner the night of one of the live nights. And so Sheriff Arnott's going to ride and Sheriff Lamb's going to hop in with them. So myself and my cameraman hop in the car with them. We go out on patrol for a while. It's pretty slow. So they decide to call it a night so they can reunite with their wives. So they drop off myself and my camera guy with another deputy for us to continue on with the show. Well, as they're driving back to the hotel to link up with their wives, a chase comes in from another county. And they're chasing a guy who just busted out of jail and stole a vehicle. So now car one sees the vehicle, and car one, which is Sheriff Arnott, is the number one car in the pursuit. So Sheriff Arnott and Sheriff Lamb are now chasing this fugitive through Greene County. And so we have another camera team. We're in the back of the pursuit, the car that I'm in. The other camera team that I'm working with is ahead of the pursuit. So they get ahead of the pursuit to get the stop sticks out. Right before they're about to deploy them, Sheriff Arnott is in his, Dodge Durango with the Hemi and opts for a pit maneuver. But the vehicle that this guy stole is like a work truck that has one of those flat beds and like all the like vices and just,
Not gonna pit easy, dude.
diamond plate. Yeah. So he goes to pit it, nothing. So he smashes into this thing, ends up demolishing part of that vehicle. He wrecks out the front end of his vehicle and gets it to a stop. And both Sheriff Arnott and Sheriff Lamb get out of the vehicle, and Sheriff Arnott effects the arrest on the bad guy. But those kind of car chases don't happen. They're very rare. And for somebody like Sheriff Lamb just to happen to be in that county when a car chase happens like that with the sheriff and then getting involved in the pursuit, you talk about a shit magnet. Sheriff Lamb is a shit magnet.
Yeah, I was always the shit magnet in all of my teams. They were like, shit, Chris is on this one. All right, everybody pack an extra tourniquet. Shit's going to go sideways. I was that guy. Sorry, dudes. It's just, I don't know why, man. It just follows me. Well, I think it's a good spot to wrap up for today. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Parting words?
Parting words. Try not to be about as black-pilled as I am. I'm not that black-pilled, but what I will say is don't let politics take up any more time than is necessary in your life. Life's too precious to be mad at your neighbor, to be mad at your friends, to be mad at family members who don't think the same way that you do. And if you do have a leftist in your family, don't let them get under your skin, and do whatever you can to encourage them not to let Trump get in their head, because all they're going to do is ruin their day and ruin the precious amount of time that you have to spend with that person.
Dude, 100% good advice. Well, if you guys made it this far, thanks for watching the video. Hey, go ahead and do all the social media things. Hit the like, hit the follow, share this with a friend. I'm always more apt to watch a video if somebody that I know and trust shares it with me versus just scrolling across the algorithm. And the algorithm doesn't like us anyway, so it's probably not going to help you find us. So if you're here, do that for us. It's completely free to you to hit the follow button, but it sure does help the channel out. Thanks for hanging out today, guys. We will see you next week. And remember, all is not as it seems. Most of it is fake and gay, but like Tom said, don't let it eat up your life, right? Stay salty out there, guys, right? Keep your head on a swivel. All right. Anyway, that being said, love you guys so much. Go with God. Don't be a dick.
This concludes our scheduled programming.